Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Ernie Davio, I see somehow you managed to find your way through the foggy, dark, and dense forest and in to the fox den for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Yes, and remember, I love the darkness, and the darkness loves me. It is my new friend. Absolutely delicious. Much better. I still could drink some more blood all night, but I guess this will have to wait until later. Ernie Davio and myself and the Midnight Society are going to once again take a walk into the darkness known as the Dogman phenomenon. And remember, you can't spell slaughter without laughter.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf. And everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, yes, once again, it is time for Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. This is the home and the stomping ground of the Midnight Society. And once again, we sit around the fire to burn the late night oil and try to figure out what is occurring with the Dogman. Ernie Davio, aka the Squatch Whisperer, has ventured in to hang out with us. How are you doing tonight, man?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I'm really glad to be here and be able to talk to you tonight.
No, I appreciate you, man. It's been a minute, but I know you've been caught up in some things, so it's good to get rolling again, but you haven't really missed too much. I have been just being nose to the grind and editing. And actually, before I throw you the mic back, I would like you to tell the audience what you do. But first, to anyone out there that really wants to get a hold of me, just text me. I really am horrible with answering my phone. I can't on the spot. All right. And just text me. I'll get back to everybody quicker via text than I will with a phone call or Facebook. But back to the subject at hand. Ernie, man, you want to tell the audience what you've been up to and what you specialize in?
Oh, really, what I specialize in is, of course, the cryptid world out there, explicitly the Bigfoot or whatever you want to call them. Sometimes I prefer the forest people, and I'll be doing a conference in June in Massachusetts at the Camp Moses Reservation, and it's for a good cause. It's for the kids, to raise money for the kids, but that is going to be, I think, within 2 or 3 miles of where I have actually had an encounter, and they've been having a lot of encounters there because it's the harvest season over there in Massachusetts, and there's a lot of apple orchards, pears, peaches, plums, blueberries, everything, and we've kind of patterned them coming through, the forest people, during this time of the year. This makes, I believe, the 3rd year in a row now. So that's what I'm up to there. Other than that, I was working, and my hours have changed, and now I'm on here with you tonight to get my monthly fix in.
Good stuff, man. Sounds like you've been pretty busy as well, and that's definitely a big kudos. Well, tonight, some of the topics I thought that I would throw your way is our occult team and some of our science members that specialize in that have really shed some light to me and others about the whole term werewolf and actually the validity of that. Because at first, like speaking to you, I used to really buy into werewolves, not at all. Yet now, from being introduced to some of these really messed up books and occurrences and activities that these people were practicing and portraying, well, there's been a clarity actually brought into the term werewolf. And again, it really carves a big difference into skinwalkers, dogmen, and werewolves because they're all still under the same terminology. Because if someone saw any of them, they could think they were any of the three, yet there are vast differences. And before I name off some of the books, I was wondering what you thought about all that.
Well, the werewolf, just in general, is it's really you and I both have kind of like a little bit been on the other side about that, whether we want to call it a werewolf or not, or a dog man, you know. So this should be kind of pretty interesting because everybody that's out there, even in the dog man field, we'll call it that cryptid field, some of the reports are they're I don't want to call them bizarre because they're you know, who am I to say anything like that, you know, after what happened to me. But um we're looking at some of these descriptions and everything is they're going from running on all fours to being straight up like a human being. So um could there be information in some of these books that you're going to be mentioning tonight? Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of lore in that area right there. A lot of these books, like you've been saying, that have been banned. They just don't want you reading about them. And if the Vatican locks them up, then there's got to be something going on there, right?
100%. And it definitely, again, there's a big difference. The cynocephali are what we believe are the dogmen. And again, if you look back in, King Lycan, again, might really be referenced as, well, some sort of werewolf. You have the Nordic cultures speaking of werewolves without referring to them as werewolves. Same thing with skinwalkers, which is kind of interesting. And more or less, yeah, they're a manifestation, it seems, of some sort of occult activity that definitely seems to be darker derived. Meaning, like, for example, we all know what occurred down in Kentucky and Tennessee with the indigenous cultures being pushed out of their land and also it being flooded to create the actual vacation land of the LBL. So not only do you have all that negative energy there and manifestations and curses placed upon the land by the indigenous cultures, you also have witches at points in time that were shunned and also lived up in the forest and the mountains. Again, that supposedly placed curses. So it made me start to think that maybe in this area that where supposedly the family massacre occurred, etc., that we're not dealing with, say, a dog man, that actually might have been a quote unquote werewolf or something that actually has been manifested from all this negative occult activity. Because whether it's Native American, Greek, Roman, Egyptian, doesn't matter if you're diving into any sort of occult activity. It's very odd how there's so many similarities about having to do something terrible to somebody close to you, or just look it up. It's nasty stuff to anyone out there. But some of these books right here, well, they all have sections that are supposedly allowing these individuals to either manifest something that you can speak to that then can lead you in the direction of becoming, quote unquote, a werewolf or a skinwalker, or being able to summon it and supposedly have control of it. And the meaning of the more you become this, though, supposedly, if you curse yourself with a werewolf, you lose your humanity every time. With some of these books, real quick, I'm going to just name off before I throw the mic back to you, just to get your thoughts before we proceed. The book of for the most part, a lot of people think that this was not actually a real book, and the gentleman that created the book claims it's not. Yet, if people have ever heard about it or read it, which be wary because, again, all these books are supposedly cursed, and people have been unable to translate these, and when they have, they realize there's older versions and bad luck, etc. But either way, in this book, the depictions he creates are just straight up nightmare fuel. And for somebody to, I don't care how creative you are, to be able to come up with these things, a lot of people say he was just some sort of quote unquote vessel for something darker that was sending and channeling him this information to create that. Okay, so that one, whatever, let's just say that is quote unquote not real. Then you have the Lesser Key of Solomon, again, another cursed book. Then you have the Dresden Codex, the Book of Abraham, the Book of Soiga, the Grand Grimoire slash Gospel of Satan, the Voynich Manuscript, Shams al Marif, De Vermius Mysterious, I butchered that one, The Great Omar, and the Treatise of the Vessels. All of those books right there, again, are cursed, supposedly, meaning they are in with the Vatican locked up, or they are supposedly just out there and about. And one of those books on there, the guy that created the book was unable to sell it, just couldn't sell it. He finally sold it, and it happened to be on the Titanic, the only copy of it, and it had gone down supposedly. Interesting. Again, now we fast forward to like World War II and such. All the occult members of the Dirty Stash, like Heinrich Himmler and all his high ups, loved all this occult activity. And it's rumored that they either had their hands on all of these or the majority of these books. And before I proceed, what do you think of that?
Well, when you want to mention like the dirty stash there in the SS, that was one of the reasons why they were created. If my memory serves me correctly, they were traveling the world and they were looking for certain things like the I think it was the Spear of Destiny and the Ark of the Covenant. And why would anybody go through that much work, um, traveling all over the world looking for these things if there wasn't just the opposite? If you're looking for water, you'd be looking for fire, and so on and so forth, right? Um, Everything goes hand in hand. The Necronomon, I think you mentioned. I'm wondering if that's the same thing as the Egyptian book, which is extremely hard to get a hold of. It. I've only seen one of those one time, and I know somebody that ordered one, and they're quite expensive, but extremely hard to get your hands on, and obviously they're not original. But they all have things in there like I'm going to say the Satan one that you mentioned. Oh yeah, the Grand Grimoire Gospel of Satan. Same thing. There's curses and everything that you got to go through to um, achieve that curse or cast that spell on somebody. Now the Voynich manuscript, that one there, that one there is perplexing to me because nobody's ever actually broken uh, what the Voynich manuscript is actually talking about because there's a lot of drawings in there and some of it appears to be in code and they don't know if they're talking about plants that no longer exist or maybe even it's herbal plants that are used in um, curses, things like that. Now I think the Lesser Key of Solomon, I'm not totally 100% positive on that, but I do know that there was some link between him and numbers too. So you're looking at going down the line there and linking. We know words are magical, and we definitely know that numbers are too. If anybody is into numerology, so when you start putting all those things together, the question would be: is it possible or do you think that it's possible that these things could have been accomplished? Because we have all kinds of things, when we're dealing with the numerology and stuff like that. Like you're looking at um there was a haunting in Connecticut, in a funeral parlor. That the guy was actually, I don't know if it was called a necromancer. I think it was called a necromancer, where he was taking the bodies and putting them in the wall, and the place was just really filthy haunted, real bad news. So he was using some of that. And again, there was a case in World War II that a lady in a concentration camp, she wanted to rid the world of the stash man there. And so she, and this is only knowledge, it was only known to um, the rabbis. It was only taught to them after the age of 32, I think it was. And it dealt in mysticism and it dealt in numerology. And supposedly, the way the story goes, and the Warrens got a hold of this too, was she actually created or conjured up a jinn and put it in a box and sent it to our main man over there. And I guess it never arrived, but it was making the circuits throughout the world. And today, people can look that up and they'll see that anybody that's come in contact with it, they immediately got rid of it. And there's a long story on that, on the hauntings that were going on, because ironically, what they were seeing in their dreams or, out of their peripheral vision was an old woman bent over, and she would be going towards that little box. It was like something you put on your bureau, and then she would disappear. So, it kind of points all towards that right there. Would anybody want to get involved in that? And, uh, you know, I don't know. I don't think that would be a really great idea. Maybe some people have, and like you were saying, the Native Americans uh, would put a curse on a piece of property, like um, Area 51 or something like that. We also had that down in New Orleans, Marie Deveau. The voodoo priest queen, the queen of voodoo down there. So could all this stuff really be real? Let's face it, we do know that there are things out there that we don't think are real, but they are. So that's my take on it right now. I mean, some of them I haven't really seen, like the book of Soiga. I'm probably looking some of these up and getting an overview on some of these here. But werewolves and stuff like that, I mean, if you're going to be digging into something like that, then maybe you best know how to get rid of a werewolf too, just in case you need that knowledge if things go south on you.
I hate, man, great stuff right there. And no, I couldn't agree more. And the whole necromancer thing has always been interesting to me because, I'm a nerd and geeker. So growing up, I used to play this game called Diablo with my little brothers. And you could pick different characters, and there was a necromancer that it all falls inside of those books, man, because I'm spiritual, not religious, okay? The only reason I know any of the biblical stuff is from people on our science team and our cult team and people that specialize in that, okay? Bible historians and things have, explained this to me. Well, when you have these manifestations and things, okay, well, werewolves and such and shadow people and manifestations all supposedly have this sulfur type like smell, hellhounds and
Right.
anything that supposedly is coming from that realm, we'll say, per se. Okay. Well, what's interesting about that now is it's still a portion of kind of controlling the an extent. It doesn't matter whether you are trying to arise skeletons, I guess, or manifest a shadow figure, a vampire, or a werewolf. It's still all in these books, is what I'm trying to say. Because I have, again, didn't know this, but when you look at angels on TV shows and movies, man, those aren't real biblical angel depictions, okay? Once I was introduced to the actual biblical depictions of angels, those are pretty scary, dude. They have like a bunch of different eyes and like a bunch of different wings and things. They don't look like some beautiful blonde woman or something that's like half naked with wings, etc. No, they look pretty gnarly. So, now, the demons, well, yeah, for the most part, some of the demons they create in movies will tend to look a little bit more scary than the biblical ones, but either way, pretty close. Okay. In these books, right, you can supposedly communicate with angels, which anyone, like I just said, that would have the gonads to want to talk to one of those, holy Christmas trees, because they just don't look friendly or evil. They just look like straight up, I don't know, man. And then you can supposedly, like I said, speak to the crispy man himself, Lilith, some lesser demons underneath them, and you can do well, use your imagination. It's out there. People know what you're going to apparently be doing if you're trying to contact them. Okay, nothing good, obviously. Well, then on top of that, you can either become supposedly these entities that, well, the more you become them, the less humanity you have, and it's harder and harder to come back. And then you just stay in this form. Interesting. And what if you were a Wendigo or something, right? And you went back and forth, and all of a sudden you forever stayed in this and you're out in the forest. Wow, interesting. But again, you can also supposedly manifest these things once you've contacted Mr. Crispy and Lilith and such, and they can either allow you to control them or, like I said, become them. And there are things that look like the Jersey Devil, there are things that look like shadow people, there are things that look like vampires, demons, werewolves. And interesting enough, in all these books, it hints at being able to do all these things. So I'm starting to believe whether you are potentially going to be speaking to a jinn or trying to manifest a jinn or a vampire or a werewolf, or you're trying to speak to demons, I think those all are going to fall into the same category of the occult, meaning I think that's the only way a werewolf can exist is literally diving into the same type of screwed up stuff that you'd have to do to become a skinwalker and some of those really messed up rituals and things inside of those books.
I would really have to agree with something like that. Is if you get lost in it, it's like anything else that you become what you believe. If you believe that give you an idea. If you believe that you're a loser, you're going to be wind up being a loser. It's not just going to happen that you're going to be a winner when you think you're a loser. So that's just the power of the mind right there. The smell of sulfur. It's strange how
Mhm.
that's around a lot, even in the cryptid world too. And a lot of people are thinking that it is a possibility that maybe what they're seeing, are like there's good ones and bad ones. Like angels and demons. Seeing angels, pictures of angels, the way that they're supposedly really supposed to look like here. Um, it's kind of crazy that you have, what is it, 280 something fallen angels, and we've talked about this before, and you have the exact same number of Anunnaki, and each one of those fallen angels actually supposedly taught something to the humans that lived here at the time. Whether it was beauty or fire starting or uh, uh, chemical equations or math or whatever it was. Okay, so why would you not have one that would actually be teaching something like out of one of these books? That's the weird part right there. Like you're saying, would I want to be around people that want to try to conjure up something that could probably put an end to you out in the middle of the woods? No, not really. You know, um, it's not a matter of disbelieving something, because you never know until it's directly in front of your face. Then you're going to really know for sure, i.e., what happened to me. Definitely for sure. You can deny it all you want, but that day might come where it's going to be present right in front of you. There is got to be, I mean, why would the Vatican themselves take such a large interest in taking a lot of these books. Who knows what else they have, and
Hmm.
locking them up. That would just be, let's face it, they burned a lot of the books. Nostradamus. You know, you have to know why he was basically housebound there, locked up in there, and everything, and what he was working on himself. In the description of what he was doing, and there's other ones too, like Baba Giba or whatever. Um, all of them, trans-like states, and numerology and things like that. Perhaps they just stumbled upon some of these things. So, is it feasible? Is it possible that this could happen? There was a case in Massachusetts that this gentleman was possessed, and people swore up and down that he would appear uh, in different places. And I'm not talking just like 10 feet away, like in another room. I'm talking like miles and miles away. This guy was supposedly possessed. Was he himself involved in something like that? Very well could be. That's a scary thing. Once you're involved, if you talk to people who are into the occult and stuff, um, watch out who you invite in. There's a knock at your door. Watch out. It could be something that you don't want coming in, because once you let it in, it's hard to get it out of there, and then it's going to start possessing you. And that is a real thing, possession. So just be careful.
Real stuff right there, man. And before we start wrapping this up, that reminds me of the case down in Vidor, Texas, where Bobby Businger claimed that this dude literally was howling at the moon and acting like a werewolf, but he looked like some crazy jacked up human type like individual, but he didn't feel pain and he ended up unaliving like a bunch of guard dogs, and he would come and bang on their house so hard that it would wake him and his wife up and knock all the dishes and things off the wall.
Wow.
And yeah, he would repeatedly do this, and finally he was taken in by this mental institution where supposedly he had escaped from, because he was seen walking down the highway, just, all ripped up
Mhm.
clothes, covered in blood from like the dogs and stuff. And they came back and told Bobby that apparently, he had been caught and brought back in, but he was into all kinds of strange occult activity. And also he was considered to be insane. And apparently he
Wow.
was some like maniac. But it makes me think, like we were just talking about with the manifestations and things, I don't know, maybe he had kind of started that process of, I don't know, becoming a werewolf or something and
Hmm.
acting like that, because
Yeah.
there, yeah, there's another case too of Swift Runner that occurred. I don't know if you ever heard about that, but he was a trapper, extremely successful and one of the best. And he ended up coming into town because he lived in a very remote area with his family, and he claimed he was starving and he needed food. Just feed me. And they're like, "What do you mean? You look very healthy and you're a trapper. Why are you unable to get food?" And he just kept, saying, "Feed me. I need food." So they ended up like following him back to his home. And when they got there, he had literally unalived his whole entire family and ate them all. And
Love it.
he was just picking up their skulls and things and by, the eye sockets and just casually talking about it. And the rest of the individuals claimed you could see the handprints of the fat where he had just been touching everything as he was, eating and taking off the flesh from his family members. And again, that is something that ties in, with the Wendigo and doing messed up stuff, is you never are full after. So here's this dude where multiple people claim they saw this. He's saying he's starving, feed me, feed me, feed me, but he looks very fit and healthy. He's a professional trapper, and now he has consumed his whole family, and yet he's starving still.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. I'm not so quite sure that I would be going back into the woods with anybody that was acting abnormal like that. But that is a good that is a good example right there. Is again, is once you get in your head. I'd like to go back on that other guy I was talking about too. Is one of the things that they noticed, that a priest noticed, and eyewitnesses noticed. This guy had supernatural strength. not just abnormal strength, but supernatural strength. The amount of weight that this guy could pick up, like the back of a tractor, crazy things like that, And we're finding this is also in the cryptid world, is where they don't just have normal strength, they have supernatural strength. The things that some of these cryptids, like the Wolfman, can do, or the forest people can do. Just, is there a link there with between the smell and everything else? There could be. They could be, some of them could actually be demons or somebody possessed by a demon. I believe you have a guy that comes on once in a while, JJ Squatch Man. He's been present on a couple of exorcisms, and his take on that is these demons can possess you. So can they transform your body too? Or, yeah, I mean, the power of the mind alone is just crazy as it is. Never mind coupled with something that we really don't understand totally.
Again, preach, my friend. And it's just super interesting because everyone just says the smell of sulfur. Like one gentleman claimed he was sleeping and this smoke figure came in that ended up kind of manifesting into what looked like some crazy demon wolf, and the hellhounds, the gin, anything that comes into that type of realm seems to
Right.
have the smell of sulfur. People say that about the Jersey Devil. Some people have even said about that from Sasquatch and negative interactions
Yeah.
where, so again, it makes me wonder, like you said, that the manifestations are obviously not the same potential aversion. So meaning if someone, manifested a demon like Sasquatch or a demon like Dogman / werewolf, it's going to be a lot different than the version that it's manifesting. I mean, I guess it would be no different than the skinwalker or something trying to take on the form of a human being as well to mimic it.
Right. Right. So the moral of the story is, this Halloween, when you go to people's houses begging for candy and they open up the door and you can smell sulfur, get out of there.
Right. And that also, again, reminds me of when people say that, something's just tapping on the window and the black-eyed children and entities like that. Well, apparently they have to be invited in. Again, I don't know these type of biblical references, but then other entities such as certain dogmen and Sasquatch seem like they try to bust in, meaning they don't seem to be from that same type of manifestation, or they don't seem to have to abide by those same rules. Because if one Dogman is just going around tapping and just messing around almost as waiting for you to go outside or something and then open the door, or maybe it could just be screwing with you. But it seems like there's other cases where that dog man's like, what? Screw you, and punches right through the window and tries to grab somebody. It didn't seem like it needed to be invited in. Or again, I cover the dog man, but I've heard cases of people answering the door, say with the black-eyed children, and they just are asking for help. And people that did invite them in, well, it was a very strange interaction and they had some bad luck after. So yeah, it just definitely, I feel like, brings a little bit more clarity to the differences, because again, there is a huge difference between a dog man, a skinwalker, and werewolves. If anything,
Yes.
werewolves and skinwalkers would be a little bit closer in regards of the activities to become one, but there is still a huge difference as well. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of strange things going down there, and with the skinwalkers, a lot of really strange things happening, and that is one of the things that maybe the next time we talk about the siege of Ohio, if they call it high strangeness, where you're just not getting just one thing going on, you're getting multiple things, and that's down there at Skinwalker Ranch. A lot of things going on now. On another note, is maybe somebody just don't like you or something, and that's why these things don't have to knock to be invited in. They're out to track you down and get you. So be careful out there this Halloween.
right, no, straight up, my friend. And on a final note here, you're gonna laugh. I'm getting ready to set up for the Bruins game before I sit down with Heather and Aaron from Small Town Monsters, right? So I'm getting ready
Hmm.
to log in because usually it's on Nesson because up here in
Yeah.
New England, but I'm watching on TNT because we're playing the Avalanche. one of the buttons to do that is automatically turned on, and I'm just reading it as we're wrapping up here. You're just gonna chuckle. So automatically it's turned on. So anyone out there, just look for these things because this one actually put it in your face. I assume in other ones they're gonna hide it more. Ready? Automatically turned on. I turned it off. Allow the sale, sharing, or use of my personal information for targeted advertising. No, thank you.
Wow. Yeah, we don't want to allow that. Who's that
Just to
knock?
watch the Bruins game, man.
Who is that knocking on that door?
Well, that's just what I'm saying right there. So
Yeah,
no, I figured you'd get a chuckle out of that. So to anyone out there, be careful because I'm literally just trying to log into TNT with my Verizon cable
yeah,
account to watch the Bruins, and they are trying to sell my information. So good stuff. But thanks for hanging out with us tonight, Ernie. Man, it's always
yeah.
good to
It was
sit
fun.
down and pick your mind, man. So I look forward to again getting you on here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you have fun for the rest of your night.
Again, I do appreciate everyone who stopped by tonight for this episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, comment, share it, and feed the algorithm. And remember, there are many things that go bump in the night, so keep your head on a swivel.